Hi, and welcome back to the Britt Mayer Show. Today we are talking with Sheriff Chad Bianco. He's Riverside County's top cop and a contender for California Governor 2026. He's ready to shake up Sacramento with a law and order reboot. With over 3 decades in the sheriff's department, Chad has faced down fentanyl cartels, he's defied COVID mandates, and he is no stranger to all the headlines, including a third assassination attempt on Donald Trump in Coachella last October. And what about kneeling during the BLM protests? We are going to get into all of that. He is no stranger to headlines or the heat. And now he's gunning to turn California's nightmare around, promising faith, family, and service over politics as usual. From border battles to Sacramento's echo chamber, Chad is here to unpack his playbook and to tell you why he is the outsider to watch. Let's get into it. Well, Sheriff Bianco, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. We're going to go through a lot. We're going to cover a lot of ground. So I would say fasten up your running shoes because it's going to be a sprint. We're going to get through a lot.
Sounds good.
Let's start with, just for people who might not know who you are, just give a short introduction of who you are and what brings you to the point of being ready to actually contend for the seat of governor in California.
Very good. Well, my name is Chad Bianco. I'm married, father of 4. They're adults, 35, 32, 31, 28. I have 4 grandkids. I've been with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department I'm in my 32nd year since 1993, and I've been the sheriff since the election of 2018. During that time, I've been quite active and vocal in Sacramento, not usually on a positive side because everything in Sacramento that has to do with public safety is usually negative. I realized that my ability to protect Riverside County and provide them with the best law enforcement services possible is directly affected and prevented by the legislators in Sacramento. So I spend a lot of my time interacting with them or dealing with bad bills or trying to advocate for good bills, mostly beating my head against a wall.
Yeah.
But I spend a lot of time in Sacramento. So over these last couple of years, I've realized in spending time in Sacramento and then even interacting with my community as the sheriff, public safety really ties into everything else. So public safety ties into schools, public safety ties into businesses, public safety ties into people that want to go to the grocery store. I mean, anybody that's a victim in whatever it is that you're doing, we are engaged in that. So I end up becoming more involved in other aspects outside of public safety, and especially in Sacramento, talking with those people that are there trying to advocate for something better for Californians. And they are having just as hard time as law enforcement is because it seems like everyone in Sacramento is working against Californians. So as this progressed, we really pushed for Prop 36 last year. I traveled the state as the law enforcement face of Prop 36, trying to convince everyone of the disaster of Prop 47, how we were lied to by our government, and we bought into that lie on the ballot that we signed up for. We voted it in, but we were lied to about it. So I spent a lot of time traveling the state, talking to people about 47 and the issues that we have. And then I start realizing, obviously, Newsom is not running he cannot run for a re-election. He's termed out. But I started seeing all of the people lining up for to take his spot. And it is the exact same names and faces of the people that put us in this position in the first place. It's these career politicians who have truly been in Sacramento and acted on behalf of special interests and lobbyists instead of California. And as I'm looking at them and realizing, as bad as what I think, a horrible job that Newsom did, and I don't believe in anything that he was doing had anything positive to do with California, I'm realizing that the people that are lining up are just as bad or worse. And as I'm talking with people, I mean, of course, they start telling me to run, and it's like I have the perfect job. I have the perfect job in the perfect county with the perfect office. I don't really want this. I don't need this. But eventually it was, you know what? I'm complaining so much and I'm fighting so much. I realize the only way to make this better is if leadership is changed at the top. And then with all of my communication with people, it's realizing that over the past several decades, we have never elected a leader in California. In my world and my, talking with subordinates and deputies, new deputies and everything else, a real leader absolutely must care about other people more than they care about themselves. And we haven't put anybody in a leadership role in Sacramento for decades. We may think we did, or we may not even have thought about it. We elected the person with the best hair, or the person with the most catchy name, or whatever it was that drew our attention to them. But leadership and integrity was never an option. That was never on the ballot. And I think that Californians right now are starving for someone that they can believe in, starving for someone that they can look to. And even though they may not agree, they know that that person's being honest with them, and they know that that person is actually doing their best to work for Californians instead of themselves. So much like the same reasons why I ran for sheriff, it's almost just repeating itself on a bigger scale with California. I know that nothing is going to get better unless the right person gets in there. And not only do I believe, other people are telling me that I am that person.
That's good. Let's talk about some of the failures that you have seen on the ground underneath the current leadership from the top down in California. What would you say are, for you, like the 3 motivating failures that have convinced you that there has to be change and that you're the guy to get in there and be the change maker?
Yeah, there's unfortunately more than 3, but I'll try and keep it to 3. Public safety really for me is the biggest issue, because the number one role of any government is the safety of its citizens, its residents, and the people that either live there or you reside there or visit there for that matter. So public safety is the priority, the number one mission of government, and we have completely failed. We are all hurting. We have a political movement that demonizes law enforcement, that's trying to make us like the bad guys and criminals as victims. It's this twisted version of real reality. And it's the defunding of the police, or that impression that you have to defund the police, take away their budgets, they cost too much. Well, the reality is that's your number one goal. That's what you should be doing. We have to protect our residents, because if you don't feel safe, you're going to move to where you are safe.
Right.
And if your business is not safe, if you can't keep your business open because of crime, or people won't come in there because of what's going on out front, you're going to move to a different place that you can thrive. And that's what we're seeing in California. We have a revolving door in the criminal justice system. We treat criminals like victims and disregard the real victims, and they're just pushed aside. So but that ties into everything else. That ties into our building industry. You can't bring housing and people into your county if crime is running rampant. You can't have safe schools and a learning environment if crime is an issue at your schools. And so really for me, that's my wheelhouse. I mean, 65% probably of what I will be talking about in this next year and a half is public safety, and making public safety better in California for everyone. And then everything else falls into play, that it's just the common sense that we see every day. Our schools are dismal failures. We are absolutely failing an entire generation of kids. And we already ruined one. And now we're into another one that we are failing them. And the good thing about these kids now is they're realizing it. Yeah. The generation before didn't. That's just what we gave them. And unfortunately it was bad. We did not educate them. And the kids now, the 12-year-olds even to the 22, 25-year-olds, they realize that, hey, you guys are failing us. We're not getting the education that we should have. We're not getting the preparation to be adults and to get into the workforce and those types of things. So our education system is ultimately broken. But then I guess the biggest issues for me is why I'm losing all of my friends, why I'm losing my kids, why my friends are selling their businesses, why my deputies are quitting and moving to other states, is regulation and taxes. Regulation and taxes in California.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that is why our cost of living is higher than anywhere else in the country. We pay the most taxes than anywhere else in the country. We have more business regulations than anyone else in the country. We have more building regulations on than anyone in the country. And all of those regulations cost time and money to the business. And that has to be passed on to the consumer. So if I'm going to keep my kids here, if I'm going to be able to provide them an environment where they can actually afford to buy a house, where they can afford gasoline to get to work, where they can afford groceries when they're hungry, I'm going to have to actually do something about the unbelievably high taxes
Right.
and regulations that are driving people away. And
So
if we're
talk to
going
me. Let's go right there. Give me your plan of how, and I know it's complex and multi-layer, but if you were to give me an elevator pitch of how you can convince voters that you actually have a plan to solve the out of control regulations that's costing us a ton and forcing people to move out. We can't even afford homes or apartments in California. How do you plan right away, day one, to begin to fix this?
So number one, we have to realize that regulations, what are the reasons for regulations? And ultimately, we've got to start being honest and say regulations are all designed to make government more money. That is the only thing that they're in there for. And so all of those have to be taken away. So the broad picture, we have all been shown and proven by President Trump and Elon Musk that government is absolutely wasting money, fraudulent transactions,
Mm-hmm.
just disappearing money. And now we're even waking up. And most of us have known it for years, but the majority of Californians now are waking up to, hey, California is just as bad, if not worse. And we have billions and billions and billions of dollars that are just disappearing that we are not getting a benefit from. Give you a stark example. In the last 10 years, the size of our state budget has doubled. It's more than doubled in 10 years. But 10 years is not that long in
No.
our lives. What in 10 years have we benefited from? Crime has gone steadily up. Homeless has gone steadily up. Housing costs have gone steadily up. Regulations steadily up. Water issues steadily getting worse. Electricity for infrastructure steadily getting worse. But yet we've doubled the size of our budget. That it makes absolutely no sense. So the waste there, and then hearing that we're wasting billions, we have to stop it. Somebody has to get there to say enough is enough. And then my unique perspective is not only do I not like spending taxpayer money, do I not believe that government is doing the right things with taxpayer money? My entire life is about law and order, and you break the law, you suffer a consequence, you go to
Mm-hmm.
jail. So we know there is fraud. We
Right.
know there is abuse, and someone is going to be held accountable, but somebody has to have the courage to go in there and say, I'm going to hold people accountable. I am not going to succumb to special interests and to lobbyists.
Mm-hmm.
I am serving California residents, and we are going to make this better. So the overall waste has to be attacked. But then you get to the point of, that's the only reason why we need all of this money, is because of rampant waste and rampant fraud and rampant abuse. So number one, we are going to eliminate state income tax. There is absolutely no reason why the most populous, the most prosperous state in the country with the fifth largest economy, we should be doing that on the backs of our workers. The more workers spending their money and fueling the economy is what would build up the government's coffers anyway. Artificially taking it from the people that are working hard and giving them less for their hard work is the reason why people are leaving. So we absolutely will eliminate the state income tax. And it bothers me when I say that, to the response that I get from some people, particularly Republicans, because they'll say, oh, you can't do it. You can't do it. You're going to have to raise something else, and you got to get that money from somewhere else. That is not true. Our state has never had a money problem. We've had a money management problem.
Mm-hmm.
And if we would just manage our resources and our money based on what we have and what we are being given by generous people that are willingly paying their taxes, we could make a difference here. There are 10 states now in the country that do not have a state income tax. What makes them better than California? Why is California not leading this push? We're going to be the last ones ever to do it, because everyone else is following suit, saying, hey, those people are prosperous and it is bringing businesses and workers into the state that makes everything better. So the income tax will be gone. The regulations, most regulations can be done away with a stroke of a pen. And then we work on the legislature to make permanent fixes so those regulations cannot come back. It really is simple. And unfortunately, we have been put in a position where we believe it's not an easy fix, because how did this possibly happen? How did we get to this place? What were those people that we put in Sacramento doing? And the bottom line is they were doing absolutely nothing. This is really on purpose. It's just a greed of getting more money for special interests. And we will be the same place in California, if not worse, if the voting public doesn't stand up and say, look, we've had enough. We've had complete control. The Democrat progressive system has had complete control of this state for the last 60 years, and we need a different direction. And the really what I say to them is, what do you have to lose? What if I don't fix it? They aren't going to fix it. They're making it worse every year. So it's almost like we're at a place of it's a win-win to vote for me. We're either going to make things majorly better. It's going to be better for the lives of Californians, or worst case scenario, it stays the same, which is horrible right now. And then vote me out the next time. But I will make a huge difference in 4 years. And I will show people that all you needed was someone that cared about Californians instead of their own personal agenda.
I think a lot of people are going to be really intrigued with your pitch to end our state income tax, because that is a huge burden for a lot of people out here. Let's go into a few of the controversies that I know people are probably listening, and there's an itch on some of these topics. So we're going to hot topic through some of these. Let's start with the Coachella close call. So President Trump, during the height of the end of his campaign, after I think the second would-be assassination attempt, he came out to Coachella out here in California, and you said that your deputies likely stopped a third assassination attempt on Trump. Now that you've had some time to process all of that, I'm curious what your take is at this point on that.
Yeah, thanks for the question, because this has been so blown out of proportion, and honestly, everyone is to blame. Myself, because honestly, I am by far in this country the most transparent law enforcement leader that we have in this country. I will answer anyone. I will give interviews to anyone. If you have a question, and you can go ahead and ask it, and I'm going to answer it. So the problem with this entire event is, from the very beginning, when information started getting out that we arrested someone for, with guns and everything else at a Trump rally, after he's already been 2 attempts on his life, the media went nuts. And it started with social media. It started with, interestingly enough, in hindsight, it started with this person's social media circle. He is a social media influencer, or at least he wants to be. So this all started in his circle, and then the mainstream media started picking it up. And that night, we're watching this happen. We monitor social media a lot, and of course, we have to monitor media. And the question went from, was this a third assassination attempt, to all of a sudden, different outlets just started dropping the was, and then saying this is a third assassination attempt. And so for us, it's like, good grief, this is like spiraling out of control. That's not our role. That isn't even close to what happened. So we had that press conference the next day, and I answered all of those questions. The problem with me is my press conferences go an hour, and then I have 15 seconds on the media and 15 seconds on the news show, and social media can cut and paste whatever they want from that news interview. And so the question that was asked of me is, did we believe that we prevented an attack? And my answer was, based on what the deputy found. He found a person showing up to a Trump rally after 2 assassination attempts in the inner circle of this rally, with multiple guns in his car, multiple boxes of ammunition, fake license plates on his car, a car that was not registered to anyone, and passports from different countries in different names that did not match the names on his driver's licenses in 2 states. So you take all of that together, and my answer was, did we believe at that time that we may have prevented another assassination attempt? Of course we did.
Right.
And then the question was, do you believe that now? And then it was afterward, when he gets back out of jail, and now he's on social media claiming that he's the biggest Trump supporter in the world. I said, that's really irrelevant to me. I don't care what he says. And I even said, I hope he wasn't there for that. But in the end, we arrested him for fake license plates on his car and illegal guns in California. And this has taken on a life of its own for that person. Mm-hmm. That person is the one that is keeping this going. The social media influencing, I haven't talked about that. Maybe the week after is when the questions were being mentioned. I haven't said a word since then, but it's nonstop with him about this whole assassination attempt. The assassination investigation is up to the FBI and the Secret Service, not me. We arrested him for state crimes, and they do whatever it is they're going to do. And in the end, they chose to do nothing, which for a local law enforcement, I don't care. And I still have the same opinion. I hope he wasn't there to harm the president. But then, I mean, I've been having this conversation with many people outside, and some of their questions to me are, well, maybe he was there for somebody else, or maybe it was something else. And then we have to look back and say, who is this person and how did he get here to begin with? And he has a history of just suing people, of doing bad things and then suing people and saying he was a victim and his constitutional rights are violated.
Well, based on what you just said, I think a lot of people haven't heard all of that. And so that clarifies the whole picture. Let's talk too about another hot moment that made headlines is back in 2020. Now, this is just to get everybody's frame of reference correct. It was right at the height of the Black Squares, and the defund the police movement had kind of started to surface, but it really wasn't that incorporated thing that it became yet. This was at the very beginning in 2020. So at the height of this beginning wave, you took a knee during a Black Lives Matter protest, and that image was plastered all over. I mean, I saw it everywhere. And if I search your name, it still comes up. So I want to know, looking back now, what your take is on that moment and how that squares with your law and order vision for California, and now knowing what we know now about Black Lives Matter Incorporated.
Yeah, well, just for clarity, we knew about Black Lives Matter and what that movement was in the beginning. Whether they were officially an incorporated event is irrelevant. We knew it was in the law enforcement world. It's a domestic terrorist organization that is completely anti-law enforcement. So this is very broad, and I'm gonna try and make this brief. And if I don't make sense or if I confuse you, please ask me a clarifying question. But I want to pose it like this: if something doesn't make sense, it probably isn't. It's probably not what you think. And in the end, I can't control what people think. And I've had this argument with many people. And this is to kind of like frame it how you said, is square this with my opinion and me. So you have to keep in mind, I had over 900 deputies there that night. Mm-hmm. And there were probably 150, 200, maybe even 300 police, highway patrol, and probation and other people that were helping us for that event. But it was primarily me and nearly 1,000 deputies. 10,000 people is what they estimated. So fast forward to today. I am probably one of the most respected law enforcement leaders in the country, certainly in the state, and most definitely in Riverside County and in my department. And if I kneeled to BLM in front of 900 of my deputies, I would never have that position. I would never have their respect. They would never follow me. And then add that to, up until that point, I was extremely vocal of others that were kneeling to BLM. Mm-hmm. So in the end, did I kneel to BLM? Absolutely not. And the perspective that people have from the media that I can't combat, I can't, there's nothing that I can even say. The videos that are out there are where people will say, we heard, they were right there yelling for you to take a knee. Well, that's awesome from you sitting at home in your couch, watching it on TV, that the camera picked that up. But with 10,000 people screaming at me, really, what you didn't hear that we all heard, that the media would never replay these events, was the F Bianco, the F police, kill the police, all of those things that were being said too. And at that time when all of this happened, it was nearing the end where we were coming to the end of we had a curfew that we let them go past. And it was, I had been dealing with the organizer of that event, who's in the video, that are being spread for a week. For at least 4 or 5 days leading up to that, he'd been in my office. He was applying to be a deputy with us. It wasn't like this was a combatant. I knew who he was, and we had a good relationship. And every time he had been in my office, we had ended by praying that this was going to end up well and not like Los Angeles and not like the other places in the country. So as this is all happening, and as I'm telling him, and mind you, he's telling me where the bad players were. He's telling me at that time, this section over here are all Antifa. This section over here are the ones that are going to be causing you the problems. For the most part, it was good people that just got caught up in a protest that showed up because everyone was protesting. So in the end, I told him, we're done. We're getting to the end now. We are going to have to shut you down. And he posed it to me again. Well, will you pray with me and that this ends well and everything else? And I said, yes. He asked if deputies would. I asked the deputies if they would. Some of them said yes. Some of them said no. Some of them, and then, as we were going to kneel and pray, because that's what we were talking about, in hindsight, should I have known better? Probably, but only in hindsight, because at the time, all I know is things are being thrown at us. My deputies are in confrontations on the side. I'm being told, F Bianco, kill Bianco. We knew this was going sideways. And so was I going to say, no, I'm not going to pray with you? No, I wouldn't have. I would do that again. Knowing and being able to look back, would I kneel to pray? Absolutely not. But the bottom line, 900 deputies there, myself included, my assistant sheriff who was behind me, my chief who was behind me, we all know what happened there. And unfortunately, because of what we heard from cameras that played that on the TV, that supports a narrative, mind you, that's what we believe. So I'm never going to be able to convince people that just don't want to believe because they've formed this opinion and they're never going to change their mind. But in the end, I know, and law enforcement knows, and I would not be in the position of respect that I earned if I would have disgraced or gone against law enforcement and sided with a group that hated law enforcement.
So you would never bow to the mob. That's what you're saying. You would never kneel for the mob. Yes.
I'll tell you, I would never kneel to the mob. And the funny thing about this whole thing is, within minutes of all of that happening, we engaged that crowd like no one had ever seen before. We employed everything we had to end that riot. It was no longer a peaceful protest. And it took us about 30 minutes. And within 30 minutes, we had dispersed a 10,000 member crowd that was violent, throwing things at us, the major fireworks that they were launching at us and stuff like that. We had no reports of injuries. There were no businesses damaged, no windows broken, no businesses looted, nothing like that. And we made many arrests. And from what we did and how we handled that, every single law enforcement agency in the country either contacted us, what did you do? Or they saw what we did and they started the next day doing the same thing with their riots, with their people rioting, particularly Los Angeles Sheriff. Los Angeles Sheriff and I were in constant communication. And when he saw what we did, then he did the same thing. He's like, I'm not bowing to the politics of this anymore. This is wrong. And then he unleashed his law enforcement to stop these unlawful protests. And they started doing the same thing. Riverside County, since 2020, no one has ever come back with any type of a protest like that. We show up to any type of protest that people want to have. We make sure that they are peaceful. We make sure that they are protected from anti-protesters. But that element that we monitor, particularly at that time, the BLM social media circle and everything else, they avoided Riverside because they knew that they would never make the media with us because we were not going to allow them to carry on and break the law. So all of those things together don't go with me kneeling to BLM. So the answer is no, and I would never. And in hindsight, it was poor judgment or tunnel vision at the time, and not realizing what that was going to look like on a camera later because of all the other issues that were going on surrounding it.
I think that clarification, it's important to hear that. And like I said before, it paints a clearer picture. Moving into the pool of the contestants for this governorship. It's growing every day. And you've said that you would jump for joy to run against Kamala. She has not announced yet that she is going to run, but she is the darling of the Democrats. I actually looked yesterday just at the approval rating and the polling right now. And as of a couple of days ago, Kamala is still number one for the Democrat Party for 2028 presidential, which is mind blowing. But I want to ask you what you would hammer her on and how you would turn that into votes if she ends up being the number one against you for governorship of California.
Yeah, number one, I do not think that Democrats are stupid. I think they are very tactical. I think that they have done a fantastic job politically, far better than Republicans, and that's why we're in this position, because they are tactical. And there are so many. I
agree. And I think that we have always played the game of being late to the party and then trying to make up for it, where they are always ahead of us. They're two steps ahead, and then we're playing defense, not offense.
Exactly. I unfortunately right now, I thought we were winning, and I thought we were going to turn that corner and use their own tactics against them. But it's turning out that we're gonna start doing the same thing that Republicans always do, and I'll explain that right now. I hope it's Kamala Harris. I truly do believe that based on where we are in California, I will be first or second after the primary. If it's Kamala that is first, I honestly believe that's going to be a slam dunk, because Kamala's background in California is completely failed public safety. Everything about public safety that is a failure today was her doing, she had a part in it. She is the one that lied to us about Prop 47. It was the Attorney General's role to write everything on the ballot books that we got, to explain to us what we were voting for. And it was the Attorney General who lied to us about safe schools and safe streets.
That is really important. And I've tried to explain that to people because I think that's an underreported issue. But just highlight that. What was it? What is Prop 47? Obviously, there's been a repudiation now. Prop 47 doesn't exist in California anymore, but she is the reason why Prop 47 went through. So just highlight that, because I think that is super important.
She was a part. I mean, Newsom was there too. He was playing his part. Gascon,
but it would not have gone through if it wasn't for the way that she wrote it.
Absolutely, because what happened was how most voters vote, whether we like this or not. I hate it. I wish people would really concentrate and look into the people that they're voting for. But how we vote for things is based on what we read when we get that book from the state, because we assume that what we are reading is going to be a factual indicator of what we are voting for. And usually it says, if a vote yes for this will do this, and a vote no will do this. So the problem with that bill is we were in a position that crime was starting to go up, crime was increasing, and they championed it as a public safety bill, and they named it Safe Schools and Safe Streets. The Safe Schools, Safe Streets initiative. Who in their right mind is going to vote no for something that says, I want safe schools and safe streets? We all want that. But then to make it worse, in all of the writing in the paragraphs after,
I'm just even thinking too, how do you run a campaign against it? Don't vote no for safe schools and safe streets. That's really hard to run against that.
That's why I tell you that they are extremely intelligent. They are smart and they are tactical. The problem is they've been lying to us for decades. And as good people, and most people are good, we assume. I mean, we're not best friends. I don't have a personal relationship with you, but just because we're talking, I'm going to assume that you're telling me the truth, because we're good people. And I would hope that you wouldn't just blatantly lie to me. But our political parties blatantly lie so they can get something out of it. And it's basically just more power, and it's a win. So Prop 47 was sold to us that it was going to make our schools and our streets a safer place for Californians. What it really did is made pretty much most felonies misdemeanors. It made all drug crimes, possession of drug crimes, misdemeanors. So possession of heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamine, all of those things used to be felonies. It made them all misdemeanors. So that keeps criminals who are either selling or using or stealing with drugs or whatever the case may be, we can't help them anymore because it's not a crime. We can't force them into rehab. and we can't send them to jail. So that immediately caused our homeless to just skyrocket, because our homeless issue is not a homeless issue. It is a drug-induced psychosis issue. It's not mental health and it's not homes. It is drug-induced psychosis. From my world, from my expertise, and from what we deal with on a daily basis, 90% or more of the people that we deal with who are the homeless, the ones camped out on the street, the ones whacked out of their minds, screaming and yelling and all of those things, they are constantly under the influence of drugs. They are never, ever sober. Because there are so many drugs in their system, their brain just doesn't function anymore. They're hallucinating. They're in a different place. They are not rational. And that's what we see. So that is what Prop 47 did. Then you had others, Prop 57, same thing. They sold it with the same dishonest names, but that made it to where people couldn't go to prison anymore. You could petition to get your felony. If you were in prison, you could petition. Now that we made everything a misdemeanor, well, that crime's a misdemeanor and I'm in jail for that, prison for that. And so the judges would just let them go. So basically, from 2012 with AB 109, which was prison realignment, when the prison was sued by the federal government because they were overcrowded, rather than build more prisons, they just let all the inmates out of prison. And they let them into our streets, or they forced them into county jails. And then they made different laws, AB 109, Prop 47, Prop 57, that put the impact and the burden on county jails. So now we're all overcrowded and we have to release people. So there's really, truly, unless you harm someone, there's no going to jail anymore. That's the state of crime in California. And that is what Kamala Harris was in charge of. She was the person, her office, her as the Attorney General was responsible to honestly tell us what we were voting for. And she manipulated the entire state to vote for that. And the more sinister part of it is they had been trying to do that in the legislature, and we were actively winning. We were beating those bills down because we were showing how horrible and how dangerous they were. Yeah. And so they lied to the public to get the public to pass it. The interesting thing, or the government, the civics lesson, is if the public votes for something, for a law, the legislature cannot change it. So what they did was the public voted for something, and that would never, ever, ever change, even if we got a majority of Republicans in the legislature, because it had to be the citizens that changed it again because they put it in place. So that's why we had such an uphill battle with Prop 36 to get that passed, because it has to be the people that change it. It can't be the governor. It can't be the legislature. And they were lying to us again, saying, oh, no, we'll just go on our side. Don't pass 36. We have some bills in the legislature that will make those changes. We looked like fools because they were good bills, but we were against them because we knew that they didn't matter. They were irrelevant because the voters had made that choice and the voters had put those laws in place. So the good thing for us is 36%, Prop 36, 3/4 of our state voted for Prop 36. Yeah. It was a mandate to our government that we are sick and tired of public safety in this state. Your direction, we want a different direction, and we demand it now. The problem is Prop 36 requires court funding. It requires more judges. It requires mandatory forced rehabilitation that we have to pay for, and the governor's not paying for it. So Prop 36 is not being implemented because it takes the governor's buy-in, and the governor has to want it to work.
To execute it.
And they don't want it to work. So there's no funding for any of the issues or any of the parts of Prop 36. So now we're just constantly in a big battle trying to get them to fund those.
It's like in limbo then. We're in limbo where the effects of the attacks against law and order under Kamala, under Newsom may have somewhat passed. There's we've past that era, but now we aren't in the era of being able to fully execute law and order in California, which goes back to your role and why you're so passionate and you're running on law and order. I want to talk to you about talking about bills. SB 276 and 277, I think, were the two that passed just within the last decade. They both came after medical freedom. And a lot of moms in California have come to me and begged that I ask any candidate for governor about what you would do with the issues of the attacks on medical freedom, especially with our kids in the school system in California. So for those who don't know, it is impossible, and I say impossible in all caps, to get any form of medical exemption when it comes to the vaccine schedule for kids in California. You might hear that you can go get an exemption. You can't. It's virtually impossible. They have strangled doctors to where even a doctor who thinks it's legitimate won't sign it, because then they come under a threshold of investigation, and it's a huge disaster. And then on top of that, religious exemptions were taken away. So you can't even say that on a religious basis, you don't want your child to go through the full vaccine schedule. If you choose not to go through the vaccine schedule, then your child is denied any form of in-person education, including childcare in California. So I want to know your take on that. And since it did go through the legislature in California, what you would want to do. I really don't even know your position on that, and what you can do.
So there's a lot of things that the governor can do that with executive order that we are seeing from the president. How that works in the back end is it's not a permanent fix, and so you have to work with the legislature to fix it. So I am my entire life I have been I actually, number one, I'm a Christian, and part of what I mean, this is weird that I think like this, but I believe every parts of the Bible and every aspect of how I'm supposed to live. But one of the things very early on in my life, I was very athletic, and one of the parts of that Bible where it says that you treat your body, it is not your body, it is God's body, and you treat your body like a temple.
Mm-hmm.
And I have always treated my body like a temple, and there is, as we are coming up into now, and now we're talking about immunizations, and we're talking about forced immunizations,
right,
and what people should, you can't go to school if you don't have
mm-hmm.
your immunization. So what I'm going to say next is going to be the people who are going to come out against me are going to be the people that really, truly don't want me in there for a reason. And my entire campaign is to care about Californians rather than special interests and lobbyists. And we have to truly start being honest about why are we having all of these mandates, these mandated vaccinations. It is not because they work. It is not because they're safe. I mean, there is, if you're going to trust the science, which that's what they always want, that was their claim, is trust the science. Well, I actually know how science works. And for every scientist that says something, there's another scientist that says opposite.
Yes.
They're almost worse than attorneys.
Uh-huh.
And the science is to try and figure everything out. So now we get to the point of, am I against vaccinations? I was vaccinated. My kids were vaccinated. There are a couple that I have recommended to my kids for my grandkids. With all of that said, if my daughter and my sons do not want to vaccinate their kids, they shouldn't be forced to vaccinate their kids. That is their right as a parent. We cannot forget we live in the United States of America, and the government doesn't get to tell us how to control our individual lives. Government is there for a purpose. It's for infrastructure. It's for our protection. It's to protect against other countries invading us. It's to protect. We have to have a civilized society. We have to have an adherence to laws. But government does not get to dictate how we live. And whether it's your religious freedom, whether it's your religious belief, or just your personal belief that these vaccines are causing autism, and you don't want to have, you're not ready to trust that vaccine to your child, then the government should not be forcing you to vaccinate your child. I am completely against mandatory vaccinations for school. I am completely against not having exemptions for either personal beliefs, religious beliefs. I honestly don't care whether it's religion or not. I know there are some religious beliefs, but what if I wasn't religious? Mm-hmm. I don't believe that the danger is less than the benefit. I absolutely don't want my kids, this is one of them, we never, ever, ever, even though we were pressured, would have given our kids the HPV
Yeah.
vaccine.
Gardasil. Mm-hmm.
And they were it was like, you have to, we're not going to let you in school. You're not going to go on, it got to a point where my kids they couldn't go on a field trip because they didn't get the flu shot.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, okay, we'll go to Disneyland that day. They're not going to school for the field trip because you are not putting that in my kid. My kids are healthy. We eat good. We exercise. That's how we're keeping our body healthy. I don't need your vaccine, which kind of even went into the COVID shot. For me, it's never going to happen. But if you want it, then you should be allowed to get that shot.
But not under a compulsory force where it's compulsive, you have to do it.
No. If you want your kids vaccinated, those vaccines should be available to you. If you don't, then the government has absolutely no right to tell you that you have to.
So what do we do then in California what would be your plan on that? Because I think this is a big driving force in the mom vote in California.
There will be on day one, there will be an executive order that stops that. And there's reasons how executive orders come to play. And I don't have to, give a civics lesson of how it works, but it's exactly how Trump was able to do what he did when he got in there. It's how Biden did what he did when he got in there. And the sad thing is Newsom could do the exact same thing right now if he didn't believe in all of this garbage, but he does. He believes that the government should have all of this control. On day one, there will be an executive order from my office with my signature that does not force parents to vaccinate their kids to get into school. That regulation that prevents you from going to school will be taken away, and then we will work to change the laws that either for exemptions or to completely eliminate them in the first place. But there is a mechanism to completely stop that. And I have to tell you personally, I am in the same spot because I'm talking with victims who they absolutely know their physical deformity or their physical ailment that they're dealing with right now was without a doubt caused by a vaccine.
Yes, I hear that. And I know so many people very intimately who I saw kids change with the vaccine schedule, and it's undeniable. I mean, I have seen it in real time. I've seen it in my family. I've seen it with nurses who used to believe in the system, and then they gave their kids the shot because they were told that they had to in order to send their kids to school. And that's why I'm a conservative. I think that the government is supposed to be very small and very laser focused. And when you see all of the roles it has taken on and how big it's grown, and the fact that the only way it grows big is out of our pockets, we pay for it to become larger. And that wasn't the way the government was supposed to. It was supposed to be a small laser focused entity. And then we were supposed to be very free. But to be at a point in California where in order for you to use the public education system that I pay taxes to, your kid has to go through an ever growing and protected vaccine schedule it's absolutely insane.
Yeah. I am not going to force. I don't want my grandchildren to have all of these vaccines. While I am in favor, and maybe I'm not in favor, I would have to change and say even the big 4 or 5, the ones that I got, just the measles, mumps, rubella, and that. But we went from 5 when I was a child to 40 or something like that.
Yeah,
now.
I think we're at 69 now.
I see that is about money. That is about special interests, and that is about the government paying these pharmaceutical companies millions and millions, if not billions and billions of dollars. And we are the guinea pigs. There is absolutely no one. My probably favorite politician right now, and I mean he's technically not a politician. He's just working in government, but it's RFK. I mean, I admire everything that he has done in fighting for the health and safety of other people. And it's common sense. This isn't something wacky. The wackiness is mandating the COVID vaccine that we already know doesn't work. There is no question. There is absolutely no question in any medical person's mind that the COVID vaccine does not prevent you from getting it, and it doesn't prevent you from spreading it. Why is it even still there then? Why is it even an option? It is 100% about money and control.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, as we wrap up here, this has been such a great conversation, Sheriff Bianco. I pitched out to my audience saying that I had an upcoming interview with a candidate for California governor, and I said, give me your best hot seat, end of the interview. I'm going to light the fire, and we're going to go through as many questions in a real short period and just have you answer as quickly as possible. And I got so many responses. So if you follow Rooted Wings on Instagram and X, I throw these out to my community, and it's so fun to see the questions that come in. And this one, I was like, oh my gosh, you guys performed. I got a lot of questions. So we're going to go through them. And then I just want you to answer as quickly as possible. And then we'll wrap up and you can give your last pitch to those listening, how they can follow you and everything. So are you ready? Are you ready? Do you want to take a deep breath?
No, I'm not ready, but go ahead.
Okay. All right. Question 1. Would you reverse our status as a sanctuary state?
100% day one.
Can the government, or this one, actually, we already asked that one. Okay. As a Republican governor, how do you plan to get the whole tranny BS out of our schools and out of sports?
That it's exactly how that question was even posed. It's BS. This is common sense. Boys do not belong competing against girls. As a dad, as a coach of middle school and high school kids, boys do not have any business being in a girl's locker room or competing against them.
How do you overcome the supermajority in the state house?
In the beginning, it's going to be leadership. And I'm not telling you I'm a leader. Other people are telling me I'm a leader. And with that comes an innate ability that I don't really control myself, of being able to get people to go along with me. It's common sense, it's reason, it's give and take, it's listening to other people and talking things out. I currently am in government that is predominantly Democrat, and I have had zero problems in Riverside County. I get most of the things I want. I've acquiesced and given up some things because it was against what somebody else wanted, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to fight that battle because I'm going to fight over here. I will do what is absolutely best for California. And then part of me, what everybody knows from the last 5 years, is I'm not afraid to get in front of a camera and tell everybody else what's happening. And what's happened in Sacramento for the last long time is they operate in a little cave and nobody knows what they're doing. And if they are not going to be operating for the benefit of Californians, I'm going to make sure that district where they were voted in absolutely knows that they probably shouldn't vote for that person again, because we got some sideways things going. But it's going to be a mutual relationship of a leader making sure that we are all working for Californians, regardless of whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. This fight, just to fight the other side, absolutely must end.
Yeah. What about your stance on school choice and parental rights?
Parents are the person responsible for their kids. Nobody else. The parent is responsible. If the parent proves irresponsible by either, in my world, by either victimizing them by crime or by neglect or something like that, then there's some other entity that has to step in and either educate the parents or help the parents or somehow rescue that child. Otherwise, it is the parent's responsibility, not the government's. The government does nothing with a family. It is about the family, and it is about those parents raising their kids. With that, they are being forced into places that they don't believe that are not providing the education for their kids. I am completely in favor of school choice. I believe that our public system is an absolute dismal failure. We will do unbelievable cuts to the public school system because the school voucher system, giving people money and letting them choose where they're going to spend their money to educate their kids, including homeschool, is going to be an option with me as the governor.
How can you bring together a fractured state and solve all of the problems that we're proposing here?
It's fractured because of politics. We absolutely Sacramento only needs common sense. It needs someone with the courage and the strength to stand up to the insanity that is going on in Sacramento because of special interests and lobbyists. And those special interests and lobbyists are already coming at me because of interviews like this, with me saying that Big Pharma is out, that big ag is out. We need more farmers in California. We need to grow more of our own healthy food instead of all this processed garbage that the big food companies are pushing into our kids that are making them. We know scientifically that it's causing mental health issues. So I am completely in favor of making sure that government is not working against Californians.
Man, we covered so many of these in the whole interview. I'm like, this was a good interview. I'm looking at all the questions that came and I'm like, we covered like majority of what people wanted to hear. This was solid.
Good.
I
Good.
appreciate just you sitting down and sitting in the hot seat and answering even those more contentious questions about the headline incidents, and then just sharing your vision for a more safe and secure California. I think that's so important. And I'm a lifetime Californian, and I have seen it go to garbage. Even just where I live in San Diego, the homeless issue has exploded over the last 5 years. You can't walk through downtown San Diego without seeing drug use, open air markets, and one thing we didn't talk about that I want you to talk about real quick is, I know we touched on the sanctuary state, but I would love for you to just share, because that's a big topic too, of having the open borders that we had under Newsom that really started under Jerry Brown. I'm curious how you would solve that problem, because that feeds into the homeless issue, just the feeling of being unsafe for a lot of moms. So touch on that and then we'll close out.
Yep, very good. So 100% the border has to be closed. The governor is lying right now and telling the federal government that he's sending the National Guard, and the National Guard is helping but that is not true. Our National Guard is doing absolutely nothing at the border, and they should be. They should be assisting the federal government in making sure the border is secure. The good thing right now is our border is 100% secure. They are actually singly catching the individuals coming across in sometimes days in single digits across our entire border.
The way it should have always been.
Yes, 100%. So with that, sanctuary state, SB 54, which was another lie sold to the public. The only people that protects is criminals. So SB 54 does not protect you. It doesn't protect the person that is here illegally, that is busting their butt to make a better life for their family. It does nothing to protect them. It only protects the criminal, and it prevents law enforcement when we come in contact with criminals that we can't turn them over to ICE. Because in the end, never has law enforcement ever cared if anybody was illegal. All we care about, are you a victim or a suspect? Yeah. Why did you call us? And we absolutely must. This is the fine line, is I don't want my line deputies, my patrol deputies absolutely cannot be cooperating with the federal government in immigration reform, because the people that we go to help are calling for our help. They are being victimized. And if they are afraid to report crime because they're afraid of being deported themselves for being a victim, if a woman is raped and she will not report that to law enforcement because she believes she's going to be deported, then we are failing as an absolute country, because we should be only caring about who victimized that poor girl or woman or man, it doesn't matter, and how can we make sure we get that criminal off the streets and behind bars. And if they're illegal, they need to be deported immediately. And so another aspect, instead of Trump-proofing California, I already have a plan that I will work with the president, and I will fix, if he will allow me to sit at a table with adults, we can fix our immigration system within minutes with just a common sense approach of how we're going to make this work. The bottom line is we absolutely must have a path to citizenship for people that are here. The kind of like something that people don't realize, the 10 million people that came through Border Patrol into our country in the last 4 years are here legally. Biden invited them in, and we process them in legally. So yes, they have court dates and they have hearings that they have to go to, but we can't just deport those people because technically they are here legally. So we absolutely have to have a way for law-abiding, hardworking people that want to better their lives and want to be Americans and love this country more than where they came. we have to have a path to citizenship. And my plan would be several different sectors. You can join the military and speed up the path of that process, law enforcement, our farming community, or agriculture, any agriculture, our building industry, or our hospitality industry. If you work in those industries and you have a certain time in those, you've been paying taxes, you haven't been breaking laws, then that should speed up your process of becoming a citizen. And that is how our country was successful. That's how my ancestors came here.
Yeah.
And more than likely, that's how 90% of our ancestors came here, is through the legal way. And then they either worked in the military or something and sped up that process to gain citizenship. And it's common sense. It makes sense. Criminals, I'm not talking about breaking the law coming across the border. I'm talking about criminals who victimize us by breaking our laws. They have absolutely no business being here, and they should be deported immediately.
That's good. Well, Mr. Bianco, this was fantastic. And I think it really does show people your values, your core values, your mission, and your experience and what you would bring to the role of governor in California. This was such a great, thorough interview. I'm like, we covered so much ground. This was fantastic. You're always wonderful to talk to. So tell people how they can get involved. I did get a few questions about your merch, because apparently your merch is all the rage. So tell people just how they can get involved, how they can support you, how they can find out more, and then we'll close out.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that. This is going to be a campaign for California. This is not a Republican campaign. This is not a Democrat campaign. I don't want to appease to both of those sides or either of those sides. I am appealing to California. I want you to allow me and work with me to put me in this position so we can change the face of our government, the direction of our government, so we as Californians are benefiting from the beautiful state that we live in. And so I appreciate your support. I need your support. I need not only volunteers. If you go to my website, biancoforgovernor.com, you can sign up to volunteer. You can sign up for updates as we progress through this campaign. Certainly, you can sign up to donate. There's a link there to donate. That certainly helps. This is going to be a very expensive campaign. And then our merchandise, there are a lot of Bianco merch people that are selling things out there, and I love all of them, but there is also official Bianco merch that is on our website.
Good to know.
Yes, it's on our website, and you can click on the link there. I can't remember if it calls it. I think it's merchandise. So there's a link at the bottom. You can go to merchandise. We have hats. We're going to be coming up, hats, shirts. I think we've got some mugs, some other cool little items that you can get, and we're going to be coming up with more as we progress on through here. So that certainly helps our campaign too, not only with the money that you're donating, but also if you're going to buy a shirt, if you're going to buy a hat, I need y'all wearing them all over this state. And this is all about spreading the message of who we want as our next governor. Yeah. And I am very honored that all of you would be willing to do that if that's what you choose. The only thing that I can say for me is, when you look at the ballot of what you're going to see, there is going to be absolutely no one with the qualifications of serving the public, even in an elected government role, unquestionably in favor of the public. There will be no one like that, like me, on the ballot. I am the only one that is qualified in that realm, and particularly with the integrity and the honesty. Now, the honesty part, I can't help if you don't believe me, but the reality of law enforcement is all I have to do is lie, and I forfeit the ability to do my job. That's how cops work. And I wish everybody realized that. It's okay if you don't believe me, but just know that in the end, I'm telling you the truth, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that the California dream that I came here for, I came from another state, I'm a transplant, but I came here for the California dream, and I achieved it. And I am going to do everything in my power to make that California dream once again achievable for every Californian.
Thank you so much, Sheriff.